So as of this morning, they announced PR5 apparently without a live stream. I don't know why they did that, but they announced PR5. Interesting. No live stream. I don't know why they didn't do that, but whatever. Let them do whatever they want, right? So we got the first decisive DR ship announced in the game as of right now. HMS Plymouth. All right, so the first ever, I think, light cruiser UR decisive, whatever you want to call it, rainbow, right? Rainbow tier, light cruiser ship. Interesting. I don't know what this banner is gonna be. Hoping this banner is gonna be pretty nice, but who knows? Hoping for a carrier. I think they're gonna do 2 DR ships, but I'm hoping for a carrier as the last one. But we got it last time, so I doubt it. But maybe. But I doubt it. I'm hoping for a battleship, but I'm always hoping for battleships. Regardless, we got Plymouth announced, right? So, my take on this as of right now is there must be a reason. Okay, here's the thing. There must be a reason why they've waited so long to announce a rainbow tier light cruiser ship. And there's a good reason why. Light cruisers as of right now, they fill a very weird role. Like their purpose isn't solidified for anything pretty much. Like for vanguards, right? Destroyers are good for World 14 anti-subs and for torpedoing, right? Like Shimakaze are good for torpedoing. They have a solidified purpose. They're good for those specific content. Heavy cruisers are durable. They have pretty decent damage for the most part. That's their role. And large cruisers, they're just a better, for the most part, better heavy cruiser overall. But heavy cruisers are still kind of nice. Even though they're like in a weird spot, they're still pretty nice. They're solidified as well too. What does light cruisers have as of right now? And this is the reason why I think it took them so long to get a rainbow light cruiser announced in this game. It's because they don't have a real purpose. If your name isn't Helena or some kind of like buffer, a minor one, you don't have a real purpose. Like light cruiser damage isn't like the best. They get out DPS'd by pretty much any other vanguard ship, destroyer, heavy cruiser, or large cruiser. They aren't the most robust ships. They have minor HP pool around like 4,000, and for the most part, they're light armor. So they're very, very paper. So when you have ships that don't do much damage and are very paper, what else can they offer to a fleet, right? Yeah. So they have to pretty much be a buffer. This is just a story of how Azur Lane works. Light cruisers are probably like the weakest vanguard ships in the whole roster as of right now because their purpose isn't solidified. So, if they're going to add Plymouth into this game, she has to be something drastic. As of right now, in terms of stats on the screen, she is pretty much aimed for being torpedoes. I see A rank or status on the bottom left aimed towards torpedoes. It's probably going to be torpedoes. Now, as of right now, I don't think there's like, I could be wrong, some of you guys could correct me. I don't think there's like a heavy torpedoing light cruiser as of right now. I think a lot of people use the, I forgot her name, the Feet Girl. Feet Girl. Feet Girl. Atten drew her. I forgot her name. No Shiro was being used for a while, but I don't think her damage was like insurmountably huge. I think for the most part, people used her for a buff, and her damage was like kind of whatever for light cruiser, right? For torpedoes. So if they're gonna add Plinth in this game, it has to be pretty decent on the torpedoes. And for the other announced ships, I don't know what is it gonna be, but I'm hoping it's gonna be more unique this time around. Because if there's one thing about this game that I really wanted, and I don't know why they try to stray away from this, is that Azur Lane balances mid tier. If you guys haven't noticed, like let's take for example, I don't know if you guys play Grand Blue Fantasy, but let's take Grand Blue Fantasy, right? In Grand Blue Fantasy, there is power creep all over the place. It gets tiring after a while. You have to have this, you have to have this in order to keep up with like competitive guild wars or whatever, right? Now I'm gonna say this right now, that is a bad way to design a game. It really is. Designing it so like specific characters are good for certain events, especially guild wars. That is bad design. Now for Azur Lane, it has a it balances mid tier, right? Here's my issue with the game for that kind of balancing. If the ships isn't like super broken, no, we're not super broken, but like really useful, they're pretty much never gonna have like real use unless you have no other ships to use or you just specifically like them, right? I know a lot of people like playing a game that way, and that's perfectly fine. But if you guys haven't noticed, a lot of the content recently have been getting much harder. Like the EX fights and events, which is optional by the way, have gotten a lot harder to the point where I can't even auto it for some of these because it's hard. The Arbiter fights are always a pain in the ass, so that's also a thing as well too. And the meta fights, I swear, each and every one of them just gets more and more difficult. For this specific meta fight, a lot of people are doing better because of how Repulse works, in that she does no damage at the beginning. If she does no damage at the beginning, that means you're surviving longer, which means you're going to put out more scores. That's the thing. Obviously, a lot of people that are scoring a lot now probably aren't surviving the last 10 seconds of the fight, which is the big part. But that's just how the fight works, right? It is a real easy fight to get into, but it's a hard fight to finish off. Now, if we were to compare Repulse to like the first ever meta, Huryu is eons easier compared to Repulse, right? I'm gonna say it right now, she is eons easier compared to Repulse. Not only in health, but she does way less damage compared to Repulse. The game is getting to a state where some of the higher end content is getting absolutely ridiculous. Now here's the thing. The ships we use now are pretty much the same we used last year. If you're using higher end ships, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Carriers is just Shinano, Haku with some other ships. Use some tank, Helena, Kazagumo. Battleships simply New Jersey and Friends with Helena, a large cruiser, and a flex slot. It can be Shimakaze, Drake, it doesn't matter, or Rune Moose is a flex slot, right? It's pretty much the same ships every single time. And here's what I want. I want them to break that mold. That mold has to be broken. I want diversity in this game. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, Kimo, you don't have to use these ships. Yeah, you don't have to, but you won't score nearly as high or put out, on average, even close to the best setup as of right now. And the thing is, here's the thing. No other setup gets close to those really good setups. I want more ships to be viable in this game to the point where it's not like the top setup is like a 10 out of 10 and everything else is like a 6 out of 10. I want there to be more 9 out of 10 setups, more 8 out of 10 setups, right? I want there to be, it doesn't have to be broken, but I want there to be more options available. Not to mention, I hear this a lot, by the way, if the top setups require limited ships and said player missed out on those banners like New Jersey or Shinano, then they're pretty much screwed for like years to come because the ships aren't going to get a rerun anytime soon. So you're in this position where, hey, Kim, I get this comments by a lot, by the way. Hey, Kim, I don't have Shinano or I don't have New Jersey. What do I do here? There are substitutes. Don't get me wrong. There are substitutes. But here's the thing. Those setups aren't even close. Well, if they are close, it's because of like super heavy RNG. If they miss out on one of those ships, then they're not going to be performing at their best. And missing out on really good ships, to some people, is really bad. So if they add more diversity to ships, this makes it so this fear of missing out on like high damage output wouldn't be so bad, right? Like, oh my god, I missed out on Shinano. What am I going to do now? Oh wait, They're releasing USS Midway, and she's just as good as Shinano. See, they can do that, but they haven't been. Shinano is still the broken tier ship she is for 2+ years now. There isn't enough diversity to make it so you can crack the mold a bit and still have those ships be super viable. So HMS Plymouth coming in for PR5 is a light cruiser ship, torpedo focused. As of right now, light cruisers have a weird spot unless your name is Helena. I'm gonna ask for a buffer. I always ask for a buffer because there's a reason why. Because I want more diversity for this game. It has to be a buffer. Otherwise, if she isn't a buffer, or she does like crazy, and I mean crazy amount of damage, I just don't see her being like really good. Especially because she's in HMS ships, and HMS ships for the most part, unless you're like Perseus, I guess, is like overwhelmingly broken. Well, I guess Vanguard as well too. I forgot about her. So those like just basically those two ships, right? So that is PR5. I hope they do a trailer. I doubt they're going to do a trailer, but if they do a trailer, go ahead and talk about that as well too. PR5 has been announced. HMS Plymouth is the first one being announced. I'm hoping she's a good ship. She is a light cruiser, so I'm very skeptical on how she's going to turn out. And yeah. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.